Hello and welcome to Common Sense Matters. Thanks to WZYX for putting us on the airwaves this morning. This program will also be available on their website, WZYXradio.net, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. I put those up for you. I'm your host, Sandy Rice, and today our guest is Victoria Broaderick, candidate for U.S. Congress District 4. Welcome, Victoria. How are you this morning?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you taking the time to invite me on.
All right. We had a rally here in Winchester on Saturday. What'd you think?
Oh my goodness, that was so much fun. I think it's so good to show, your patriotic duty by showing up and rallying around and showing us exactly what democracy looks like.
We had about 130 people in our designated area in Winchester. We had some great signs. Boy, people are mad about lots of things. We were focused on the issue that we're going to talk about today. But Common Sense Matters discusses issues that affect everyday Tennesseans. And the Tennessee legislature has been in session since mid-January, end of January, so we've really focused on their activities. But today, we're going to start on the federal government. In February, the U.S. House, including our representative, Scott DesJarlais, passed a budget resolution for $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid through 2034. This is our topic for today. This was a little bit of our focus for the rally, and you spoke at this. So get your brain ready to hear some big numbers, y'all, because I had to see how many zeros were in 880 billion, and I finally just asked Siri that and to make do some math for me. I couldn't do it on my calculator. But anyway, so $880 billion in tax cuts to Medicaid. And this is necessary to extend the 2017 tax cuts for the wealthy and pay down our national debt, which rose $7 trillion after the 2017 tax cuts to the wealthy. Now, this isn't DOGE cuts. This is Congress. So, Victoria, do we need to explain Medicaid and the difference between that and welfare? Do you have people that you talk to in the district that don't know the difference between the two?
Yeah, I want to say that people don't know the difference between welfare and Medicaid and what it provides, and I think that there's a lot of confusion about a lot of these programs that are programs you pay into. They're a net to catch you if you need additional services and help, and I think that gets lost in the messaging a lot. When we hear those, we just hear we don't want people on welfare. Well, sure, we don't want people on welfare. But that doesn't change the fact that there are going to be people in our communities that are vulnerable and that need additional assistance. And I don't think we should punish them for needing that help.
Right. Well, I think welfare is really kind of a throwback to welfare moms and welfare and the understanding. It does mean that welfare is financial support for people in need. But Medicaid and TennCare, which is Tennessee's version of Medicaid, refers just to medical care. And that is for pregnant women. These are people in need, financial need. Pregnant women, children, caretaking relatives of children under 19, people with disabilities, nursing home care, and low-income adults over 65 who need Medicaid for their Medicare co-payments. So Medicare is, you put into that, you have to have worked so much. Medicaid is needs-based. There's a lot of forms that people have to fill out to show, their income or their, difficulty with paying for health problems, situations. So 80 million Americans are on Medicaid. 1.5 million, or 1 in 5 individuals in Tennessee, are on Medicaid. That's about half of our children, half of pregnant mothers. Realize these are, young people that aren't don't have a pension and, other sources of income available because of their age and the high cost of health care. Medicaid funding then is shared between the state and the federal government. About 65% comes from the government, federal government, and 35% from the state. Here we go on the numbers again. Big numbers. The Tennessee Medicaid budget is around $18.6 billion. And again, I had to ask Siri for this, and 65% provided by the government, federal government, would be $12.1 billion. So cutting this large amount of money out of federal funding would significantly affect every part of the state budget, our economy, and our communities. For our congressional district, a funding loss of an estimated $2.02 billion would affect 161,762 individuals in Congressional District 4. So our representative, Scott Desjardins, has voted for this tax cut in February. This would be over the next 7 years, if that helps at all. 9 years doesn't really help me because it's still so much money and so many people. But in both times, this has been to give tax breaks to the wealthy in 2017, and this again to pay for extending those tax cuts to the wealthy and balance the budget. Now, Victoria, why would Representative Desjardins be voting for this measure? It's not like we're...
I don't think he's voting party lines, but if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of it, Scott Desjardins doesn't represent District 4. He doesn't spend time here. As his opponent, I know that, being on the opposite side of the aisle, Democrats are always accused of not being willing to tighten the budget. And I want to get rid of that idea completely. I'm a penny pincher by heart. I believe that we should be cutting those costs in places that need to be cut, like not giving out contracts to multiple organizations when we already have one on the book, And the reason he doesn't care, the reason that he's voting party lines is because he doesn't really represent this district. As a candidate for U.S. Congress, your money should be coming from your district. You should be getting donations. And Becker's really doesn't do that. He is a corporate, donor-heavy candidate. He gets lots of money from corporate donations. So he's not representing, the average Tennessean working class person. He's representing the corporations that are, lining his pockets. And, he's most famously said, we talked about this off air, that, he wants to tighten the belt. Well, if you're wanting to tighten the belt, then why wouldn't you be taking care of your constituents and not taking money from corporate donations? I don't believe in corporate greed. I don't believe that we should be taking money from corporations, because my job is to represent the average American as one of those working class people myself. And I think that's what it comes down to. He is voting party lines. He's not beholden to us as his constituents, and therefore he doesn't care when he cuts things that will negatively impact our district.
Well, he does live in Sherwood. I don't know how much time he spends here, but his family is there, which there's no billionaires in Sherwood. I think that, and he gets reelected because he carries a large, as you know, percentage, of the vote. But I don't think he's explaining things very well or letting us know why he's voting the way he is or how things are going. Now, we have a recess coming up April 12th to the 27th. That's Easter break for Congress. There was one in February, March. Let's see. I think it was in March. where he was seen at the Hog Festival and talked to a few people there. I think he talks mostly to his supporters, his friends, and the other GOP representatives for our area, and really did the party line. President Trump is doing the things that he was elected to do. Again, tightening our belts, which we need to talk about a little bit more. And later in the program, what does that mean, and who has to tighten those belts? But everything was going fine, and since then, there's been a lot of chaos. It's a daily basis. The news today was the stock market is bouncing up and down, and I'm not going to explain the stock market. Are you? We'll hold that for the next time you're on. But you know what? Other reasons, it's questionable why he's voting for this. He's a doctor. We're talking about health care. At least at one time he had a commitment to the health of people. You don't make it through medical school, not really caring. He says he's a fiscal conservative. He really wants to balance the budget, but he is a big supporter of President Trump, who's considered the king of debt. He's number 3 in the line of presidents who have significantly increased our national debt. And he's promising to bring it down. Well, the debt currently is $36.2 trillion. Trump increased the national debt by about $7 trillion in the 4 years he was in office. Yet Representative Desjardins is saying that he believes in a balanced budget. And maybe with these cuts we could get there if we didn't continue the tax increases to the wealthy. I might be before that. And then finally, he represents a rural middle-class working area. And so it's just kind of mind-boggling to understand where he's coming from. It'd be nice to ask him that, but he doesn't do town halls. He doesn't do appointments, and
He doesn't respond to voters.
He doesn't. He seems to be a little clueless. But so, why is the national debt significant, Victoria? I mean, why do we care? Why, Why do we care?
If we're about tightening our belts, if that's what the Republican Party is about, that's something that they talk about a lot. They talk about the national debt and not wanting to increase it. But you can't decrease the national debt while taxing the middle class. And when I say the middle class, I'm talking about people who make under $400,000 a year, which I know $400,000 a year is the average. Listeners are like, oh, that's really wealthy. Yeah, it is to us. Everyone is going to look a little bit more wealthy whether you make $100,000 a year or $200,000 a year. But realistically, in this environment, $400,000 doesn't get you as far as it used to.
That's true.
And what this does by taxing us, the working class people, is it makes it harder for us to survive while they're cutting those corporate taxes, which those are his donors.
Oh,
and so it benefits him to cut taxes on his donors, because that means he gets more money in his pocket. That means he gets more donations, and he doesn't have to come out and speak to constituents. I don't believe in that. I believe that, if you're a public servant, I am your customer service representative. Uh-huh. My job is to work and support you. And what the national debt shows is that they don't want us to feel supported. They don't want us to feel advocated for. They want to continue lining their pockets and continue getting money from those corporate donors who they're just cutting taxes for. And I don't know about you, but that makes me a little angry.
Well, yeah, it makes my head want to explode, because how many millions of family debt do you have?
I mean, I don't know about you all, but as a working class person, I live pretty about paycheck to paycheck. You know, we live a little comfortably, but you know, we're not a big income family. But a huge bill could knock us off. You know, could knock me out from running for office because, you know, I'm a working class person. I work 40 hours a week. I have 2 tiny humans that I adore. I have 4 fur babies. I participate in my community. And I think we should be uplifting people like that, people within our communities, those small businesses, and giving them tax breaks so that they can continue working and continue serving the great district that is District 4. Because we have some phenomenal things here, and not pandering to, you know, rich donors. You know, I'm definitely a working class person, and I feel angry when I know that, you know, we're not getting treated correctly, but corporations are.
Yeah, and that we're building up this big debt, which, you know, if we didn't pay our debt, I mean, it doesn't count if you haven't paid off your home or your car, because you have a plan to do that. But if you were just saying, just kick the can down the road, that would not be allowed. You would be in the jail.
Exactly.
But in really what it does, and I can't explain it and don't have time to study that, but it weighs down the economy, and it puts the pressure on younger people and young families who are trying to find their way, you know, in their communities, in their lives. So, as I said earlier, thank you, Victoria, and your young family for carrying the debt for us. For us older folks.
You know, we're
working welcome?
hard, you know, doing the thing, and I'm happy to do it. But you know, I believe it's patriotic to want to, you know, take
balance
care
your
of the
budget,
country and, you know, hold that on. You
but
know,
give us a break.
Representation. That's at the forefront of our, you know, democracy and how we started.
Yeah, but stop piling it on, y'all. I mean, you just, you know, $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there. I can't even fathom $1 trillion, but plus,
I can't either.
Here's a fun fact. Forbes magazine came out with the number of billionaires as of 2024 in the U.S. Guess. Billionaires. This isn't millionaires. Guess. You guess. How many billionaires do we have?
150.
No, that's way too low. You get another guess.
It's way too low. Oh, no. I was being conservative with my guess.
No, I'm sorry. We run out of time. 902. 902 billionaires. That is up from 614 in 2020. Okay. So, and they control $16.1 trillion of the money in the U.S. It's up from 2.9. So, you know, gee, at least something is working. The rich are getting richer. The idea that wealthy people...
It must be nice.
The idea that wealthy people and corporations will create a better economy for everyone is a trickle-down theory. It has never worked. It never brings the poor out of poverty, and the working class always suffers. And the inequality between income level widens. I think y'all need to be careful. The rich get richer, and the golden age that has been referred to in several speeches of late, I think is meant for us to think that we will all be golden. Yet, in the actual golden age, look it up, it really wasn't a time that all boats, people, were lifted. It was just a lot of very, very wealthy plantations, owners of multiple homes and industry, made all the money, and then the rest of the people worked for them. Anyway, it's kind of what I think slavery and, well, certainly oligarchy and communism is kind of based. Actually, communism, everybody was going to be equal, but that never works either. So.
Well, and I think when they say the golden age, I don't think of the golden age. I think of the gilded age. And for those
I think they're using them
aren't
together.
Sure what that looks like, there's a beautiful show called The Gilded Age. It talks a little bit about it. But if you need some modern day representations of that, and in media, I'm a big movie junkie.
Okay.
Look at the Hunger Games. Look at the how the Capitol is, where all the wealth is in one central place and all the districts suffer. Mm-hmm. And I say this a lot on my TikTok because that's a good depiction for the average
people can understand
person.
that. Yeah. Yeah, everybody thinks they're going to get rich. That's why people with not very much money play the lottery. How else are you going to make $1 million, $10 million? Is winning the lottery.
And the average lottery winner goes bankrupt in 3 years.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of conversation about the sports betting too, FanDuel and those types of things. But going back to this budget resolution and the $880 billion, Congress holds the purse strings, so all these budget things come from the House of Representatives. But in order to come into law, it still must go through the Senate. Or does it? Does it really matter? We're kind of sending a lot of stuff through the Senate without too much discussion or hesitation. But still, Congress is planning a nuclear option. I don't need to explain nuclear option. It's nuclear. They want to push these changes through without Senate approval, go to the president for signature, which he will sign, and then, it's not an automatic thing, but then the process of implementation begins. Now, if you go back to January 2025, the beginning of the Trump administration, the timeline looked like it was going to be much earlier than it is. I mean, we're into April. I think it may have hit some snags. I think that's good because there's still hope. A lot of times these things go through before anybody even realizes what is happening. Again, that's some party line business. Everything's going to be fine. It's complicated. There's little time to publicize it. And the changes are downplayed and camouflage. And we've been through this in Tennessee. In 2020, trying to do a block grant that would have cut services under Medicare. There's a lot of talk about work requirements. There's this assumption with welfare or Medicaid that people aren't working, and if they're able to work and get Medicaid, they're already working. People want to work. It made our state look like it was being creative, saving money and working with the administration, but it still meant or was proposing less care with pain and suffering for lots of people. None of those things, worked, and most Medicaid recipients have an illness or a disability that does not allow them to work. Even as something as common as diabetes, if you're sick a lot because of your diabetes and complications and you don't make it to work, you let go. So keep that in mind. I think the bottom line is that the taxpayers, we pay for the health care of our congressmen and senators and their family, and they are consistently indifferent to our health care. So quickly, the GOP representatives we have fought and crippled Obamacare. They never offered a better plan. They never reduced drug prices, talked about it. Day one, President Trump reversed Biden's initiative to lower drug prices, prescription drug prices for Medicaid and Medicare. The Senate's approved an anti-vaxxer, Robert Kennedy. He's been kind of making some mistakes. He's leading the Health and Human Services Department. He's got home remedies, misinformation. Dr. Oz was confirmed to run Medicare and Medicaid. There's been lots of cuts. This has been by DOJ at the Food and Drug Administration, the National Institutes of Health, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, as well as many smaller agencies. So what about our cancer care? What about research? What about new drugs for our illnesses, chronic and acute? Our preparedness for disease and pandemic? Tennessee never expanded Medicaid. We always said we were leaving a couple $1 billion every year on the table. But what if we'd done that, provided more services, let the government pay not 65% of our Medicaid budget, but 90%? We would have had $18.6 billion to pay for Medicaid services to more people in Tennessee. No significant legislation has made it to the floor regarding health care in our state. It's all about immigration and corporations. Makes you wonder if anybody in Tennessee is worried about health care. What do you think?
I mean, I don't think so. I think everything that's going on in the Tennessee legislature right now is revolving around immigration. We've got several immigration bills that have gone through or in process of going through. We talked a little bit about this at the rally, and I understand that we want to make sure that we're safe. We want to make sure that the average, District 4, Tennessean is safe. But we can do two things at once. We can address immigration with a comprehensive legislation at a federal level, while also making sure that the average Tennessean is taken care of.
Yeah.
For those of you listening, the thing to keep in mind here is you pay into all these things. You pay those taxes every single week. We all look at our paycheck at the end of the 2-week period, and we see all those taxes going out. We're like, what are we even paying for? That's your money, and your money needs to be used to take care of you, not to give some corporation a little bit of a kickback or a little bit of an easier time, because that doesn't benefit your community. I want to see more money in the average Tennessean's pocket. I want to see more money, put into these programs to make your life a little bit easier, because there's nothing radical about wanting decent health care. There's nothing radical about saying, if you need time off from work, that you should have time off from work. We are all working hard. I know most District 4 voters, I talk to them, they talk about how hard they work, and I don't disagree. I know that they work. I know that they do those things. They just don't see the benefits from them. And it's really hard when you see those benefits being used and you're not getting those same benefits. So I say bring the money back. Let's make sure that Tennessee's taken care of. At the end of the day, all boats rise with the tide. And we want to make sure that the right boats are rising, not just corporations who are getting a little kickback while the rest of us are waiting for, a little bit of assistance while we're struggling.
Yeah, tightening our belts. So, as I said earlier, congressional recess is April 12th to 27th. Contact Representative Desjardins and request a town hall or appointment. When I do it, I get ignored. As Lucy...
And if you won't do a town hall or a debate, I will.
Okay.
Because you deserve to be heard.
Yes, and have this explained. As Lucy used to say, I think he's got some splaining to do. And of course contacted our U.S. senators. They consistently confirm unqualified candidates for cabinet positions. And it's beginning to show. It's beginning to show. I think it would be interesting to examine what is happening with the House budget resolution measure to cut Medicare next month. Cut Medicaid, you cut Medicare. There's a symbiotic relationship between those two programs. Also, I didn't mention today that there's cuts to SNAP, which is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, formerly called food stamps. So we'll take a look at that. Like welfare, food stamps have a lot of stories, out there that are bad. Bad stories, abuse, and fraud. So we'll kind of get to the bottom of that with the director of a local food pantry. We can't even keep Americans fed. I had told Will, our producer here, that he might have to throw water on me to stop talking about this topic. He's getting the bucket ready. But Victoria, I don't think I can even ask you to add anything. But thank you so much for both being with us on Saturday at the rally and talking with us today. You're a good person. Say hi to the family.
I will. I thank you guys so much for having me. And, I'm Victoria Broaderick. I'm running for Congress in Tennessee District 4. You can find me at Victoria, the number 4 Congress, on social media, or you can find me at Victoria4, the number 4, Tennessee.com.
Okay, and this has been Common Sense Matters. Thank you. I'm done, Will.